So hi everyone, good morning.
Hi.
So we'll start. First of all, guys, I will ask you to close your mic during like the first discussion because me and the two other like hosts will be like speaking. So close your mic. But at the end of the panel, you can ask questions. So take notes, and after it will be your turn. So don't be shy, guys. So thank you so much. And it's our second day of RPCÉ. So thanks again for being with us. Today it's the distributor panel. So it's a panel to understand what is distribution and the importance of it. So we will start by presenting our three person that will speak with us on the distribution. So first of all, we have Serge Abiaad from la Distributrice. So hi, Serge. We also have Jason Todd and Jean-Christophe J Lamontagne from H264 Distribution and Aggregation. So hi, guys.
Hello.
So first of all, I will ask you the same question. So we'll start with Serge. So can you introduce yourself and introduce your company? So Serge.
Yes. So La Distributrice, the film, is a Montreal-based distributor of shorts mostly, and also features, of mostly Canadian independent films. We do work with filmmakers from all across Canada. We've had films from British Columbia, films from Nova Scotia, from Winnipeg. So I would say that 60 to 70% of our catalog is Quebec productions. Probably 20% the rest of Canada, and maybe that small 10%, which is relative to 1 or 2 shorts a year, is international films. So either from Europe or depending on the years, sometimes other continents.
Cool, thank you, Serge. Same question for H264.
Yeah, so good morning, everyone. So Jean-Christophe J from H264 with Jason Todd. So H264, like La Distributrice, is a shorts distribution company based in Montreal. We founded the company back in 2015. So, we take about 8 to 12 shorts year round that we try to accompany as much as possible, sometimes from the script itself, to its digital life. So we take care of festivals, we accompany the films in Canada and abroad in markets. We do, of course, sales as well. And again, like Serge, we take films also from the rest of Canada. So we've had films from BC, from Ontario, and about 70% still comes from Quebec. And we also take maybe 1 or 2 films from other countries every year. So we're open also to international distribution. And recently we launched back in 2019, last year, a new branch of aggregation services. We won't talk much about that today, but we have a new branch that now we do digital distribution for shorts, but also feature films on digital platforms. So the company also evolved in that direction, really putting a foot in the digital distribution market. But we still focus on short films, and the amount of films we take per year haven't changed ever since.
Okay, thank you. I'll go back to Serge. Can you explain me why you are a distributor now and what leads you to do this work?
I became a distributor pretty accidentally, I would say. I was suggested. We founded the company, co-founded the company in 2013. At the time, I was doing my PhD in film studies, and I was approached by a good friend, a common friend of ours, who is Daniel Karolevitz, who used to sit in your chair, and who's not at the FNC anymore. And Dan called me and he said, "Do you know of any student of yours?" Because I used to teach at Montreal University and Cégep level. do you know any student who would like to do an internship in distribution? And I thought about it 2 seconds and I said, yeah, myself. He talked about students. I was also a student since I was doing my PhD at the same time. So it happened like this very accidentally. And a couple of years later, Dan Karolewicz, Laurent Allaire, who also co-founded the company, decided to leave and to concentrate on different, on their main and respective jobs, which was a programmer and producer. And so I found myself on my own at La Distributrice, which I was for about 3 years. Mm-hmm. And since 2018, I've been working with a colleague. And and I stopped teaching in 2017 because it was like full-time distribution. And I had to have my 2 feet at the same place. And I decided that I'm going to go all in. And since I've been at La Distributrice and nowhere else.
And also, like, why did you start distribution? There was a lack of something. Like, why did you, like, you and Dan, like, spoke about distribution?
You know, honestly, I didn't know anything about distribution, and I knew very little about short films. Mm-hmm. You know, I was drowning in a world of feature films and film studies. So short film for me was almost unheard of. You know, I would watch some short films, especially the Lumière films from 120 years ago. But the short film as we know it today and all the like the business portfolio and, you know, how short films exist as, you know, like a bastard brother of the feature film. I had no idea that you could make money out of a short film, that there was a festival circuit solely destined for short films. So I really learned about the distribution process as I went.
Okay.
And I you know, I mean, it's I dove into it and I stayed there because it was such a fascinating fascinating field. And also, as I used to be more on the academic side and teaching, I rarely met with producers and filmmakers and people from the industry. So it was an interesting bridge, you know, to see what happens you know, like
beyond the curtain
in the film studies field when you only study the films. Mm-hmm. And the construction, the development of a project, and the end project, and then how you work with putting it out there, which is all about we're going to talk about in terms of distribution and sales representation, I believe.
Cool, thank you, Serge. I'll ask the same thing, and Jason, maybe speak first. I don't know. What brought you to distribution?
It's really, I think it's really, it was by accident, really. I just got out of school. I knew I wanted to work one way or another in the filmmaking business. I tried working on sets and I realized I wasn't a really good technician, really. So I felt like it was either production or distribution or, you know, writing or, you know, something outside of an actual set. And while I was looking for an internship, I thought, I might as well find the thing that I know the least about. And obviously it was distribution. Distribution, when I got out of school, you know, I didn't have any, no lessons about that. I didn't learn anything about distribution. Mm-hmm. It was a blind spot to me. So I felt like for an internship, it was the best thing to try at least. You know, I'm going to try it for 3-4 months. And if I don't like it, I'm going to try something else. And 3 years later, I'm still here. So it's not too bad.
He's still an intern. I'm not paying.
Jean-Christophe, what brought you to found like H264 and why distribution?
So that's a good question. You know, I studied filmmaking at UQAM. So, you know, my school years was really about becoming a director and being really involved in the filmmaking. But when I graduated, I always felt like I wanted to start something like, and my first intuition was a production company. Because I saw a lot of my friends opening production companies. I mean, there's so many of them. So that was my first intuition. So I worked then for another production company called Microscope, which produced Mr. Lazare and Incendie, so a very prominent production company. And it's actually while working for a production company that I fell in love with distribution. So I realized production was really not for me. Because you can have either a $6 million budget or a $5,000 budget. It's the same problems, same long hours, 16-hour filming under the rain. And I was like, okay, that's not for me. And the production company was really involved in the distribution process. And I never saw that in school, as Jason mentioned. And I really fell in love in how we were building a poster, how we're building, a trailer, how we're connecting to audiences, and especially how do we choose the right festival. So for me, that's what triggered my love for distribution. Really, like those internal discussion, or should we go to Edinburgh or should we go to Melbourne? Because that's really one of the backbone of the distribution. Besides sales, is choosing the right, festival for your film. So that's where I fell in love with distribution. And while I was working for Microscope, I directed my first independent short, which I sent to other distribution companies. And they said, we love the film, but we're fully booked for the year. So I kind of said, okay, so I want to start a company. The other distribution companies don't want to take my film. So maybe I'll distribute my own short film. So that's how it started. And while I was doing also that, I went back to school at HEC in business management in the art sector. And one of my classes during that winter was create a company. That was just the title of the class. So my school project was create a company. So I created H264. I took my own film, brought it to Regard. The film was selected there. And I just said, maybe talk with other filmmakers, see if they're maybe interested in having a new distributor. And we went out of Regard with 4 other shorts. And 3 weeks later, the company was officially founded. So kind of also by accident, so it was not planned. Wanted to go into production, but fell in love with distribution and just realized that I should distribute my own film, and the rest is history. So yeah.
Cool, thank you. That's raised the question, because you two guys are working in Quebec in the same territory, it raised the question of we need distributor. Each time someone is saying, oh, I built a distribution company, he has loads of work. So can you explain what is a distributor in the festival and filmmaking environment? So maybe we'll start with Serge again.
You mean what's the place of distribution in the chain of? Well, obviously it's the as Jean-Christophe was saying in the beginning, he said that they sometimes come on board on a project at the screen writing étape. Yeah. So if you want to define distribution, it's very different from one distributor to another. Obviously, each distributor has a different approach, a different philosophy, a different editorial line, a different catalog of films. They have different goals. Some distributors, they just want to make tons of money on films of which they have not followed the creative process. They just buy films. They talk about films as if they were just buying shoes. It's like, oh, I bought a film and now I'm going to sell it and I'm going to make money out of it. I'm going to put it out there. The distribution of our distribution philosophy, and probably the one of H264 is not very far, but I'm going to let them talk about it, is one of a human connection first and foremost. We want to work with people with whom we can keep contact with, have discussions, have a collaboration. We take a film before it has even done any festivals, and we want to be sort of responsible of the life and death of the film. So it's very crucial to have, although our sources and effectives are very limited because we don't have that much huge budgets to work on the films, it is very important to have this collaboration and an open, very transparent door, you know, through which the filmmakers and the producers can come knock on and enter, because they have suggestions to give us. And, you know, it's all about having a dialogue. So this is how we see distribution, purely from a collaborative point of view, with obviously a very specific strategy for each film, because all films are very different. And the idea is, I believe, for a distributor to try not to put in competition the different films that he or she has in their catalog, which is sometimes very hard, because if you want to construct a homogeneous catalog with films that resonate, you end up having films that explore pretty much the same territories. So the idea is to find something different in each film, so different voices of artistic aspirations, and try to have a very targeted audience and circuit for each of the films. I don't know if that answers your question, but
I know, yeah. It's like, it's more, I wanted to speak beforehand, like the distributor like takes it maybe at the beginning of the project, but also like when it's finished, to help you distribute your films in the right festival, or maybe is it more like a film that we put on a web platform? Is it more like if you're a documentary, maybe you want to be more like in a film platform, or maybe selling it to TV? Like there's like options. I wanted to speak more about that before, but like your approach is really interesting too. So I will ask the same question, like what is your like approach to distribution at H264?
I'd say Serge really hit the nail on this one. There's like two keywords that really defines my work here. It's relationships and collaboration. You know, so distribution, I see my job as we have 8 to 12 filmmakers on board each year. My goal is to become the best friends of all these filmmakers, because it's really, it's a one hell of a job to make a film. That's one thing, but it's a one hell of a job to connect the film with the audience. And sometimes too often I feel filmmakers, sometimes when they're done with the film, they have this mentality that I give you my film, do the rest, and I'm gonna go rest, because this has been one hell of a job. And it's great, I understand that, but as a distributor, this is your film, and I want to bring this film to the market, to the film festivals, to the platforms with you, because this is your film, this is your career. And especially for short film, as there's not a lot of money to make out of short film, there is money, but not hundreds of thousands of dollars. So this is your career, this is for you. So I feel like, really, when I open up my laptop on a Monday morning or a Tuesday morning, my job is just to be your best friend and really collaborate together and just see what's best for you. There's a ton of strategies possible. None are bad. They're all good strategies, whether it's in film festival and on platform, but there's one that is good for you. And it's my job to figure out which one it is.
Okay, and can you elaborate on more like your, like Serge and H264, like can you elaborate on your creative direction of your own company? Like why are you taking these types of film, and maybe share like names of directors that can like help the student here focus on like which type of film you are searching for. So we'll go back to Serge.
Yes, I always like to say that we look for more filmmakers than films, because we really like that idea of a continuous collaboration, and hopefully starting with a filmmaker that, you know, either have been making films for a while but have not been under the spotlight, or like a filmmaker that we discover, and then go on working with you know, like their second or third film. So I think our philosophy, what we try to construct as a catalog, is to find filmmakers who explore certain territories of cinematic language and who arrive to conquer these territories. So they have very specific voices. It can be a trial and error. The film does not have to be a masterpiece. I do not have to be totally in love with the film. I have to fall in love with what they tried to do. Sometimes they arrive to achieve it. Sometimes, you know, they're just one step from there. So the intention, which also says a lot about a filmmaker, is very important to me. It doesn't have to be experimental films, although we do have a lot of experimental films. It seems that we're mostly known for working with experimental works. I would use more the word exploratory. So there's exploration, and when you explore, you doesn't always get there, or you get somewhere and you were not expecting it. I don't know which filmmaker once said that if you don't know where you're going, you can't get lost. So a lot of films that we work with get somewhere, but it's probably not, it wasn't the initial goal. So it seems that, you know, I mean, we work, for example, we've worked with Olivier Godin on probably 8 or 9 of his films. You know, we love his work because we think it is a very specific voice in Quebec cinema. It's not always, his films are not always very successful because there are very talkative, there are very tongue-in-cheek and very literary. So it's not for everyone. So that's the other, that's our other approach, is always find films that are not for everyone. And this is why I talked about targeting, like a target audience. We're very conscious about the fact that not all films are for everyone, and not all films are able to be brought forth to have to have a maximized audience. So so at the end of the day, I mean, what we try to do is just shed a bit more light on some more obscure filmmakers or difficult works, and you know, hopefully, and hope that it resonates somehow with some audience, with some buyers, with some programmers. And the FNC has been a really great supporters of our films through the years, and they have taken risks on films that not, you know, all programmers abide to. So, this is pretty much how I would define the ensemble of our catalog.
Perfect. So same question for Jason and Jean-Christophe. So can you explain the more creative direction that you are exploiting, like at H264?
For us, the creative direction was always very simple, and it's only after a few years that we discovered that there was a trend in the way we chose films. So like Serge, we do tend to choose filmmakers over films. So I won't repeat the same things, but we're also willing to pick up films that are imperfect, but in those imperfection, there is something truly original and truly distinctive. Because basically our job is to understand how the programmers of festival work. And the way they work is they watch probably between 30 and 50 films per day when they're in the final stretch of, you know, finalizing their program. Maybe more, is that?
Yeah, like maybe 40 is like the maximum of a day, yeah.
so we understand that, often short films are watched in a bunch, as a bundle. So how does a short film stand out? Often it's not the most perfect one, it's the most creative one. So that has always been our go-to kind of equation in how we choose a film. Especially since we only take 8 to 12s, we really tend to pick films that really we feel strongly about. Filmmakers that we feel strongly about, as Serge mentioned. We did already 3 films with the director, Sandrine Brodeur-Desrosiers. We're about to do 3 with Marianne Farley. With Pierre-Philippe Chivigny, we did 2. So for us, when we sign with a director, we hope it to be like a lifelong relationship, as Jason mentioned.
Best friend, yeah.
Because it's true. Because we accompany films for more than sometimes 2 years in a row. So if we don't feel strongly about a title, then the way we're going to propose a film to a festival programmer or a buyer is not going to feel authentic. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to the first question you asked, Emily, is, how do we see our distribution and our vision of like the role of a distributor in the market. And often we hear the question in different panels towards filmmakers, that is, should you self-distribute yourself or should you work with a distributor? Mm-hmm. And the end question is, as filmmakers, we will always be the best person to pitch a film. Like, we could talk for hours, we can become best friend, I can know everything about the film. I will never pitch it as best as you guys can do. So in that scope of knowing that the filmmaker is always the best person to propose a film, well, first it ties back to the idea of collaboration. So as a director, you need to be involved in the distribution process. You need to engage a conversation with the distributor. And you can self-distribute, but the question is, are you willing to put in the time? Too often, once you're finished the film, you're exhausted, or you're working on your next project, and that's where a distributor comes in handy, because he will do that extra mile over a year and a half, 2 years to continue to propose the film to festival, because too often, as a filmmaker, you're excited to put your film out there, you're going to submit to 2 or 3 festivals, and then you're just going to aim at Vimeo and launch the film. But patience is key in distribution. And that's why, we choose film strictly based on, c'est quoi coup de cœur en anglais? Drawing a blank. Really films we fell in love with.
You fell in love, it's passionate. It's like.
That we're passionate about, because we know we're going to have to pitch that film for 2 years, sometimes more. And we never picked a film in the last couple of years where the selection process was not, oh my God, Jason, I saw this film last night, you need to watch it. And we're getting really excited and popped up in the office. And okay, this is crazy. It's never just, it's good, it's going to sell well, as also Serge mentioned. We're not selling products, we're selling, films. And it always starts with like that little spark that, ignites the whole passion for us for the film. Mm-hmm. And it's the same passion that you guys have for your titles, and that's pretty much it.
And also, because the two of you, the 2 company are started from people that didn't know distribution, I want to know, what did you learn? What is a thing to do and a thing not to do? What was your first, oh shit, that didn't work? What did you learn in your first year of distribution that people should not do? So maybe go back to Serge.
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a great question. One thing that I have been working on since the beginning is to put the ego aside. In distribution, there's a lot of ego going around. The ego of the people that you work with, the one of the programmers, your own ego. And you have always to remember at the end of the day that as a distributor, you are working for someone. Mm-hmm. You are representing, you are a sales agent, you are a distributor, you represent the work that someone very courageously has trusted in you. has given away for you to give it life. And this is actually something I never really understood. I'm not a filmmaker, but had I been a filmmaker, I don't know if I would have given my film away for a distributor to work on. I would have probably been very protective. So the trust that people put in us is so overwhelming. It is so humbling that I think this is what you learn as a distributor first and foremost, is to, you know, like put your ego aside, accept that you are working for someone and have a great ear. Always listen to what they tell you, listen to what the programmers tell you. And this is what I really learned. And this has been with me since, you know, like I have never, you know, like I was relatively like a social person before, but now, I mean, I'm much more reserved than before, but I have never been so much in contact with people. You know, I mean, working as a distributor sometimes is like doing a job that requires that you're on your own for a long time. But because you're not physically in contact, it's all through email, and it's all through, you know. So this is pretty much what I learned. You know, the whole ego process. And you were also asking about what are the things that we learned not to do. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, but like, you know, like maybe it's like, what's the mistake that filmmakers are doing, like when they are self-distributing or when they are coming to see you with their film, like?
So yeah, this is something that we talked about in other panels with H264 before as well, is that filmmakers, when they finish a film, they want to be distributed. They don't really do the proper research on who to work with. And they just send a film hoping that it will resonate with some distributor, and some distributor will come on board and they will distribute their film. And I think the mistake is that it is first and foremost the filmmaker's job to check out all the different distributors out there and find a common ground between their film and the rest of the catalog of the said distributor, and see if there are, you know, some common sensibilities between that film and the other films, and also some human sensibilities between them and the distributors themselves. So, so be on the lookout for someone who you like. I think I don't know if it was Jean-Christophe or Jason who said that my goal is to be best friends with the filmmaker. The filmmaker as well has to find someone with whom he will feel comfortable on the long run, because it is weekly, sometimes daily communication. Yeah, so it's more of a tip than what not to do, but it kind of come together somehow.
Same question for Jean-Christophe and Jason.
Do you want to start?
Yeah. The thing that struck me the most when I started, you know, the first year of distributing film is that the core thing of my job is to, you know, when I talk with a filmmaker, what he expects of me is to bring festival selections first and foremost, sales after that, but festival selections are really the first thing he expects from me, and that's the thing that I do not control. Is that it's mind-blowing, because I'm a distributor, but in the end, I will do my best to pitch it to the best people. I will make sure that you, Emily, will watch my film in the best conditions, like best circumstances as possible, with the best strategy ever. But in the end, I'm not the one that is making the decision whether the film will be picked or not. So it's really something that really struck me. It's no rocket science. It's really just, it's something that, it's a craft that we learn year after year, and we're still learning, of course, but it's something that we won't ever master perfectly. It's something that you just have to, you know, it's I don't know, something that you do not have full control over it. It's the thing that I do every day.
Yeah.
It's weird to think of it that way.
Yeah. And if I can add, also, it's true, it's not rocket science. And one thing that we made as as a mistake is not to be patient with our first film. And luckily, I did it with my film, so it didn't impact another filmmaker. I was not the victim, but my film was the one that had the worst career, but it's okay. Is, as I mentioned, it not to be patient and to be humble and to accept the refusal, because you're always going to get more refusal than selections, but there is great information in the refusal. When a festival doesn't pick you, it's not just because their film doesn't meet their criteria. It's not aligned with the programming that they do. So it's important that you put in the time to look at a festival, what kind of films they're picking up. Be truly like critic and humble over your own work to see where could this go. Serge mentioned ego, and when I made my film, I had some ego. Of course, I wanted to be at Cannes, and when I got the refusal for Cannes, TIFF, and all these festivals that I thought I would get my world premiere, and I didn't get it. Of course, I got like sad and frustrated, and we see that a lot of times with some of our films. Sometimes a film can get its first selection after 8 months, after 1 year, sometimes even more. So be patient, be humble, and it always pays off at the end. Because if you're rushing to put your film out and you're going to just submit it to a random festival in Wyoming just because you want to put a laurel on your poster or at the beginning of your film, I think that's where you're making a mistake. It's better to have 8 selection in the right festival than 50 selection in just random festival that will not, care to your film. So I think that would be a mistake that we made, to not be patient enough. And to give you a very clear example, one of the films that took the most time to launch is Marguerite. It took us 9 months to get our first festival selection. We got refusal from all big festivals. And the main job we had was also to reassure, the producers and the director to say, we believe in this film. We just have to be patient. And the film went on to get nominated at the Oscars. So, there's not one path. Every film can get its own path. And if you don't get selected in the top 5 festival, it doesn't mean your film cannot reach its audience. That was a mistake. Second mistake we made very quickly, read the contract when you sell the film. Once we sold the film to 2 channels that had exclusive rights. So I felt like Mrs. Doubtfire at the restaurant scene at the end. So we had to please 2 people. So be very thoughtful when you sign a contract with a TV channel or a buyer, and make sure you note these restrictions down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can someone of you explain more your day-to-day work? Like you interact with film festival, and with who are you speaking in film festival after, you say sales agents, so what it implies, when you are saying sales agents, you speak with people from TV network or online platform. Can you speak about more with who you are interacting as a distributor? So Serge.
My day starts with daycare, where I take my daughter, and then I go to the office. We work on all these different avenues at the same time, obviously. We are in continuous contact with programmers, especially when the deadline for submission is coming soon. And this is where maybe we can talk about the specific job of a distributor that sometimes a filmmaker does not have access to if he or she wants to self-distribute the film, which are the contacts. Yeah. Contacts of programmers, where we can approach them with a new roster of films that we have, ask for maybe a discount, ask for a waiver, submit specific films to specific festivals. And so obviously this is a huge part of our work, which is submissions. Contacting programmers, exchanging emails, trying to have waivers. If not, we reevaluate what to submit and where to submit. And I would say this is half of our time is just working on sending the films to festivals. Mm-hmm. Another part is obviously negotiate, where the films are going to go as soon as they start their festival run in terms of broadcasting, video on demand, outside of festival run screenings, et cetera, et cetera. And, also another huge part of our work is contact with the filmmakers. Mm-hmm. I mean, we distribute around 15 to 20 films a year. We definitely receive 2 or 3 emails by filmmakers for which films we distribute. Mm-hmm. So we have to give time to that as well. And that's another thing. So, it's it could become very draining because at the end of the day, you go through all the emails that you've sent, and you've sent probably 50 different emails, and you've responded to 50 other emails. It becomes a bit schizophrenic because you have to put yourself in different, how do you say that, psychological position when you write to different people. Different people, you send them different kind of emails. You choose a different tone. So yeah, you have to switch every now and then, every time you send an email of approach. And sometimes, you just take a hit in the face where someone is in a bad mood and they send you a really drastic email, sometimes justified, sometimes not at all. This is where the ego comes in, and you have to find a way to put it aside, So, not even talking about the whole administrative work, obviously.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is, and sometimes at the beginning of a day, I set myself to certain goals, like this is what I need to do. And at the end of the day, I have done nothing of that because I was so much flooded with emails, and I had to put out some fires, mm-hmm. Because we had to send this file and do this and do that, and respond to that programmer. So yeah, it's pretty hectic. It's pretty rock and roll, but I think this is why we're in that job as well. It's because it's like a huge atonal symphony, being a distributor.
So same question for Jason and Jean-Christophe.
That's very true. Most of my day I communicate with filmmakers, programmers like yourself, and TV broadcasters or video on demand sales or buyers. It's really every day I talk to each of these different people. It depends on the time of the year, really. Like right now, we are prepping, for example, for the start of 2021 festivals. So, they start with Sundance in January and goes to Clermont-Ferrand in Berlin, or et cetera, et cetera. So right now we are building strategies for new films. So I'm mostly in contact with filmmakers right now because we're, bouncing ideas of where do you want to go, and depending on their goals and my resources, I'm building a strategy for them. Mm. But then again, I'm also talking with TV broadcasters about films that had their world premiere last month, and then they're ready to be sold, at least in Canada. Mm. So, like, for example, I'm in contact with 2.TV here in Quebec, or CBC channels, for the rest of Canada. And yeah, it's a constant. It just never stops. It's not distribution is something that there's some high and lows. So there's some rush, but it's a wheel that keeps on turning every single day. I could send 50 to 60 emails today, and tomorrow morning I'm going to open up my laptop, and there's going to be 60 or 70 more emails to answer back, and just roll. So It's pretty rock and roll indeed.
Well, you know, if I can jump on that, I mean, it could sound very anecdotal, but it's like there's no more time zones when you work in distribution, because we do work internationally as H264 as well. So in the morning we wake up and we have all the emails from Europe and for Asia, and during the day all the emails from Canada and, you know, all the Americas. And late at night, maybe from Australia or other parts of the world or Japan. So yeah, it's pretty hectic, you know. So I think it's the same for H264. You know, when you don't get an email within like half an hour, no matter what time of the day, you go check your server to see if your emails are still functioning. So, but it's fun. It's fun. I mean, this is this is our fuel, you know. I mean, obviously if you want to stop to work in distribution, is that you've probably burned out and you really need that. But in the morning, it's such a joy and at the same time a stress. Yeah. It's a weird combination to just open your laptop and see, okay, so what is your day going to look like? What kind of emails do you have to respond to, you know? And yeah, so
and if I can add just a small thing, you know, you mentioned all the time zone, Serge, and you know, we had a great discussion, I think 2 weeks ago, about like the short film distribution process versus the feature film distribution process, which you do, Serge, and we don't. And, you know, we're discussing about, you know, what it represents for us. And strangely, you know, when you're in short distribution, it's mostly an international market. So 70 to 80% of our exchanges are abroad. Because we usually own the rights, the worldwide rights for the film, so we work on all territories, as opposed to the feature film market, which is a very localized industry. You know, when you put out a feature film, you know, you're in close contact with the exhibitors, the theaters, and then you sell the rights to other distributors for other territories, because it's mostly, well, it was mostly before, you know, theatrical. So it's interesting also to see how distribution, you know, we often say that, oh, shorts is not the real cinema form. There's no market for short films. Well, it's much more international than feature films. and I think that's true not just for distribution, but for, you know, festivals as well. You know, I'm sure, Emily, you're in talks with other mini festivals, you know, globally, locally, but also globally. So I think it's also interesting to see that, you know, we're working with filmmakers and festival and buyers from all over the world. And that's really, really something that's different, I think, than from feature films.
Mm-hmm. That leads me to another question, like how you built your contacts, because contacts are keys in distribution, like how you manage to access the right people, like how do you do like travel, etc. You can like maybe explain of like how you built your network.
Well, part of the network is built through the film markets where we travel to when we are lucky enough to have a film selected at a good festival. And we are very lucky in Quebec to be helped financially by La SODEC, that do give us travel grants when there are film markets and where the films that we distribute are selected in competition. So it's like a two-way thing, you know. I mean, we become not only the representative of our film, but some sort of a representative for Quebec culture somehow. So it's a win-win situation. We obviously do meet a lot of people in film markets. We come back home and we do have all the business cards. So these are contacts that we developed through the years. And I think that the fact that us, H264 and other distributors, do work on a specific editorial line, we become known for distributing certain kind of films. So another part of the contacts are developed when they come to us. Mm-hmm. So I've met a lot of contacts through people I have never heard of before, where they found our contacts because they wanted a specific film or they were inquiring about a specific films. So yeah, it's a two-way, you know. You know, we're lucky enough because now that there's the pandemic, we don't know how long it's going to take. We haven't been able to travel for almost a year. We're probably not going to be able to travel for some time. Fortunately enough for us, like for H264, we've been around for a while. So we do have like, we have the contacts. Yeah. We've developed them through the years. But if you were a distribution company or a filmmaker who wants to self-distribute, who can't really travel, who has much difficulty getting the contacts, it must be so, daunting and stressful because you've made a film, it got selected, but you cannot go and meet the delegation that is there, the professionals that are there, the exhibitors, the programmers, other filmmakers, etc. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so for short film, you say that like at the same time, like when you're selected or something, it's important to travel to like make contact and it helps the life of the film.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But not only for distributors, but for filmmakers. I mean, I've been to the Palm Springs Film Festival where I was probably the only distributor there. And I realized that it's actually not a festival for distributors. It's a festival for filmmakers. There were so many filmmakers, and I was accompanied by a couple of filmmakers whose films were selected that we distribute. And for them, it was like the El Dorado. You know, it was a great place to have a reality check on really how the business of short film functions. They've learned much more through panels and encounters and meeting people and going to the 5 to 7 cocktails. They've learned much more about the reality of distribution and the business world of short films than any panel any discussion that you can have with a distributor. Unfortunately, this is not going to be possible for a while. So maybe this is why these kind of panels with distributors and filmmakers, we should do more of them, you know, and give our, you know, and talk about our experience to filmmakers.
Do you have something to add, H264?
Yeah, I have a small thing to add, maybe an advice, because as Serge mentioned, it's the only way, one of the only way we make contacts is through festival markets. So luckily, in the past years, we were able to make these contacts. And the only way to do it is, to be in a room and mingle with people and go talk to them. And, I did it as a filmmaker first, and then I did it as a distributor. And it's the same thing. It's as intimidating, either you're a filmmaker or a distributor, especially when you start in the business. Like, hello, I made the film. Can I pitch it to you? Like, it's so awkward. It's the worst, feeling ever. But you need to go above and beyond that awkwardness. Mingle with people. Don't go talk to your friends at the back of the room. It's comfortable, but that's not how you're gonna create meaningful contacts that will perdurate in time. And also try prior to these events, whether it's a panel or a cocktail, there's often a list of who is going to be present. Try to target a couple of them. You can't meet everyone, but try to target, I need a business card from this person and this person. Make sure to do a follow-up not long after the festival, hi, we met during this event, so they can associate the conversation they had with your face and with your film. And that's a connection that can last for years.
Yeah.
It's not fun when you don't want to be that person that's awkward, but it's going to practice. It's going to be great practice for you to how to pitch your film, how to connect with people. And at the end, everyone's kind of intimidated to go to talk to people. I mean, we're all humans that would prefer to just drink with friends and chill. It can have such a tremendous impact on your film and your career that whether you're a producer or filmmaker or distributor or anything you want to become, those moments are key during a festival, and you need to take advantage of them.
If I can add to that, it's funny because Serge and I had a similar panel 2 weeks ago, and the exact same thing came up, and someone said something that we're all faking it. We're all intimidated by these social events, and we're all faking it. So if you want to target someone, he's faking it also. He's stressed out as well. So just go out there. There's no wrong answer. Just do it. and it's going to be fine. Really, we've been there. I'm faking it, he's faking it, and we're still doing it. So we're still here.
Everyone, my last question is more like on the time of COVID, like how you manage to still do your work, like what changed for you guys in this weird year?
I mean, short film is like the cockroach after a nuclear explosion compared to the feature film, because feature film distributors, I'm sorry, but they're fucked. Yeah. Because the only thing they can really do with their film, especially like the third-party distributors, is just put their films out in theaters, like a theatrical release. So many feature film distributors, they did promotion for their films, and then the pandemic came and they lost so much money. Obviously, there is governmental help, but still, we seem to go under the radar somehow with our short films because it's not the same financial incentives. There's no theatrical release. There's this whole avenue of film festivals that is still running and running hard, because even if it's not, it's like FNC, you find ways, you find alternatives. I mean, yeah, the only alternative is online, but there's also different approaches to show films online with the Q&As, like live stream or during the festival or even on VOD after the festival, etc. And also, it seems that, like broadcaster has regained some interest also in short films. And so we have more time as well to just push our catalog of films to SVODs, VODs, broadcasters, etc. And so we were hit pretty hard for the first 3 months, right? And I'm hoping that things will not just go back to what we were 6 months ago, because that was really hard. But for a few months now, like the past 2-3 months, it has been going well for short films, at least for us. But I believe, and I hope so, for H264 as well. They can maybe talk more about it.
Indeed, the fact that the festivals, in the first few months, we were asking ourselves a lot of questions. Should we stop distributing short films? Should we readjust our strategies? We were really we were driving on the highway and we were asking ourselves, should we take the next exit? And then we missed that exit. Okay, should we take the next one and the next one and the next one? And in the end, we're still on the highway going straight as we did before. And we changed the way we talk with filmmakers. We have more frequent, meeting to reassure them that everything's fine. We're still working on them with the film, that when we're still in contact with the programmers. And the fact that in the end, the festivals went on online didn't change much for short films. No. TV broadcasters are still open to buy short films. There's still, the calendar, the festival's calendar is still up and running. There's a few that, got canceled, namely Berlin in the generation category in Berlin in February got canceled. That's sad. But everything seemed to be intact so far. So far so good. We hope, obviously, the main thing that we lost is the physical connection with the festival, and that didn't change our job. It changed the way it's something that filmmakers are missing. It's really for the filmmakers,
the audience, and
the connection with the audiences, the Q&A, the panels. There's something missing for you, but for us, not so bad.
Mm-hmm. Well, if I may, I don't know if you wanted to end it on that, but also the questions to which we don't have answers are also about what's going to happen with it, in 6 months, where all the films, because right now we are the last acquisitions that we had are films that were shot prior to the pandemic, edited during the pandemic, and that were finalized a while ago, like a few months ago. But who is shooting films right now, and how can you shoot films right now, and what kind of films will you be making, and what kind of films the acquisitors and the programmers in festival are going to be looking for? Because 2020 has been on different fronts such a interesting and chaotic year. So even the content of films, is it going to shift a lot? And do programmers are going to have different editorial lines now, and what kind of films can we make with so many restrictions? So that also is something that we would have to gauge and to reevaluate when filmmakers are going to be doing films again, and festivals are going to be showing them, exhibiting them like they used to, and see what the TV acquisitors are going to be looking for. Maybe they want something that is more closer to our reality, like do films about a couple breaking up still have any value nowadays? It's
everyone is breaking up.
just an example. So I think there's going to be a demand of specific genres and and topics to explore. But anyway, we don't know.
I may as a programmer in short film, it's a really weird year because I compare to my colleague in feature. Like for us this year, it was a same year. Like for short film, it was like we're cruising, like good films, many submissions. It was a normal year, so I'm pretty scared for next year. But in feature this year, people were really shy to release their film because they won't have theatrical release. So they were holding the film. So maybe next year there will be tons of feature that will be released because they kept it from this year. So I'm more scared for a short film next year than feature, for example. Oh yeah. So now it's the time for the student and the RPCÉ people. If you want to ask questions, maybe raise your hand, or I can see, or open your mic. It's an open discussion. Maybe I think Jean-Christophe saw all of your films, so maybe if you have a specific distributor question, maybe you can target Jean-Christophe on your own film. So I don't know if someone has a question. Olivier?
Hi, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I was just wondering how the student film stamp plays out, in festivals. There's some festivals who have student categories, others who don't. How do you guys approach the student stamp? Does it affect any the way you approach movies?
If I can maybe answer first, we don't really take that into account because if a short film is done in an academic context, it doesn't really change the way festivals see the films. It doesn't change the way we see the film. I think one of the greatest examples is a short film that came from UQAM called le film de Loïc Dars, son documentaire Elle puis son char, which went on to win at Sundance, or at least was selected at Sundance, and had an amazing festival career, and traveling did a tremendous job with the film. And it was a student documentary. So I think having a student short film even broadens the opportunities, because not only can you be selected in all festivals, but there are also the student categories. So you're entitled to be picked up in much more sections. So I think it's, for us, we don't change the way we approach things. One thing that you have to take into account is some universities have deals with some syndicates, like UDA in Quebec, where films cannot be exploited and sold. So make sure you talk with your universities or CJEPs on how they manage the rights depending on your province. That's the only question we do ask. But in terms of potential in the festival market, student films are great.
Yeah.
Est-ce que ça répond à ta question, Olivier?
Yeah, ouais, merci. Thank you.
Do you want to add more, Serge, to that question?
Not really. I mean, when we distribute a student film, which did happen a few times, we take out the student label and we distribute it as if it was another one of our films. But there is a student festival circuit, so it can be a bonus for that film. It can pretty well play at Sundance, and then it can play at a Saskatoon Student Film Festival, for example. You know, so it's just another circuit that is like a complementary circuit. But we never label it as a student film, obviously. I mean, it is, if it's in our catalog, it is purely a film like any other film.
Cool, thank you guys. Another question, I saw Alison, yeah.
Hello, I'm the director of Promise Me, the short film, and I'm just interested in if there's a way we can connect with you after, like send you an email just to talk about our films.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Emily could probably share our emails with you.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my question. That was it.
Okay.
We don't have that much time, so I just wanted to get that in.
Perfect. Another question? Jack Andrew?
Hi, thanks for this. This has been awesome. I was curious what's the composition of like films that are submitted to you versus films you're seeking out? Do you find that you're overwhelmed with the number of films you're looking after, that you're just taking on films that are sent to you, or is it vice versa?
It's the films that we have in our catalog is mostly, if like 99% of the time, film that were submitted to us. We do receive a great amount of films each week. We have like an internal committee, which is essentially JC and I and some of our colleagues that watch them, weekly, and we meet and see if there's some gems that we like, we will pick them up. It did happen sometimes that when we go to a film festival or we go to a market and we see one that is not represented yet, sometimes we reach out to these filmmakers as well, but it's really mostly, if not almost, only submissions. So yeah, we have, like, I think Serge, you have the same process. We have a link on our website that, like, submit your films, and then we receive it, and then automatically we will watch it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's pretty much the same here. I would say we probably take less films that were submitted to us. We, we're a bit like a festival programmer who, in general, already has his or her eye on maybe, a lot of films that they want in their festival. So films that have not been submitted to them, but they already have in mind that they want to select them. So I would say we have probably, like, we receive, like, H264 tons of films. We probably have maybe 3 or 4 films that we end up working with by filmmakers we have never heard of before that send us their films. And the rest of the films are probably films of filmmakers with either we have already worked with, or that we either approached because we knew they had a film in the making and we have always been interested by their work. But I would say, it's like a continuous connection that we have with filmmakers. So most filmmakers are filmmakers we either worked with, but also producers who have produced films by filmmakers who we have never worked with before, but we have worked with that producers. Mm. So those are the different approaches that we take to select.
Awesome, thank you.
I will follow with Andres.
Hi guys. Well, I'm Andres. I'm from Colombia. My English is not the best, but I will do the best I can. So I have a question. Do you have preferences in the territories of the films you choose?
You mean the country of production where the film was made?
The country of production, yeah.
We do take that into account in a sense that, if films were produced in Quebec or in Canada, they're entitled to some grants. So that's going to, affect on the grants we can get to cover the festival submission fees. But in the end, we do take films from abroad. We do take films that are not financed by SODEC, for instance, that are 100% independent. In that case, our job doesn't change. It's just that most of the fees end up having to be paid by the producer or director. So it's a kind of conversation we have, and we do take that into account, but it doesn't affect really the way we will evaluate a film. But we do look at the provenance of the film. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We do one thing, sorry if I can add, we do also take into account a bunch of different things in terms of the profile of the director, the themes that are, intricately, told in the story. We try to have a catalog that's diverse, both by the teams that are making the film, but also in the genres of the film. So we don't want to have 12 comedies or 12 dramas made by only white cis men. So we do also more and more take that into account. We just updated our submission form to try to get as much data as possible on the film itself. So we require not only a Vimeo link, but also a lot of information about themes, directors, and much more. So yeah.
So for us, territories and language, I would add language, are not a barrier for us. So we've distributed, and we still distribute, few international films. Strangely enough, most of them are from the Middle East, but we've had film from France, from the Ukraine, from different countries. But also, interestingly enough, in Quebec, there are a lot of films that are shot outside of Canada. Mm-hmm. So you were talking about Colombia. We did distribute a film called Voices of Kidnapping by Brian McKenna, shot in the Colombian jungle, and which was a hugely successful film, and it's playing right now on the Criterion channel, for example. So
congrats, by the way.
Yeah, and yeah, so we're very interested also by different languages. I mean, obviously, in Quebec, having a film that is not in French could be a barrier to have it broadcasted in Quebec. Because also the fact that you shoot outside of Canada, sometimes you can have trouble in having the Canadian certification of a film through the CRTC, which makes sometimes your film ineligible for broadcasting, or even to compete for the Canadian Screen Awards, for example. So this has been a huge problem for us. I mean, paradoxically enough, I have a film that won 2 awards at Berlin Film Festival. It's on the Criterion channel. It's going to be in a French film festival that's going to broadcast the film like on 50 different territories. It has won Best Canadian Film at 2 festivals in Canada. And the title is Best Canadian Film. The film cannot have its Canadian certification because it was shot in Morocco and the line producer is not Canadian. It cannot be on TV5. It cannot be on CBC. So there is clearly something that needs to be revised in terms of protectionism. I don't know how you say it in English.
Protectionism.
Yeah, or chauvinism, where some of our films are not even recognized as Canadian, although Canadian citizens, the director is Canadian, the editor is Canadian, the director of photography, I mean, whatever. And then when those films go to festivals, we do have the support from the Canadian government because, there is no action without interest. Mm-hmm. Now it becomes a Canadian film because it went to the Berlinale. But when it comes back home and you want to show it on national broadcaster, and we do love them, like the CBC, we always work with them. They always take our films, but something has to be discussed. There's something a discussion to be had on what is a Canadian film, Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm going to stop there because I'm going to make a lot of enemies depending on who's listening to us.
Maybe another question before we're closing. Laura?
Hi, I'm Laura. I directed the film called Mitochondrial. It's actually, I made it in school, and it's actually Serge who was on my jury and said yes alongside Myriam Charles so I could make my film. So thank you, Serge. And I had a question about the fact that sometimes distributors work with directors even when it's only like a script format. And I was wondering if like you only do that with directors that you know, or it's like, I don't know how to say coup de cœur too in English, but it's like when you have a crush on the script, is it, yeah, so that's my question basically.
If I can first, we mostly do this when it comes in regard of the SODAC submission.
In producing,
like a production company or a director is submitting his script or her script to SODAC to receive funds to produce it. Sometimes to have a distributor attached to the project early on helps the production company or the director to get funds, to get funding. So at this point, we do we receive script from filmmaker we know and we don't. Sometimes filmmakers that we never worked with before, and they are submitting to SODAC. They reach out and we very much like a normal submission, we will read the script. And whether we like it or not, we can support it for the submission. And if you get the money, and then we are attached to your project, and so we can start a conversation early on and through your production process to create a trailer, to brainstorm on the poster and the synopsis, and etc. Yeah.
And flag also upcoming festival deadlines, so you can take that into account when you do your post-production calendar. Make sure you don't miss any important deadlines. And if I can just add one small thing, is also you just basically need to come up with a plan. So, well, talking for H264, we won't really read just a script that's sent to us like this. You need to have a script and have like an idea of, okay, we're gonna submit to this fund, we have this talent attached to the project. We feel the final copy should be done around this date, because our catalog already for 2021 is almost halfway booked. Mm-hmm. So we're already preparing for our films for end of 2021, 2022. So we need to have an idea on when you think your film is going to be finished, so we can fill it in our in our lineup, if I can say.
Okay, that's really interesting, because as I think it's the case of many people who are viewing this Zoom right now, is that we don't really learn that in school about like distribution, that you can have someone attached to your script. I learned that because I'm interning at Midi la Nuit, and we were supposed to shoot a film, and they just shot an email to the distributor, and I was like, you can do that at the script stage, and it was like enlightening for me. So there's like so many things that we don't know, but I'm eager to learn.
That's why we did this panel at RPCÉ. I don't know if Serge, you want to add something on that question? No?
No, maybe the fact that I'm a very bad script reader. I have a very much difficulty of seeing the end product when I read. But I need elements. I need, to be able to watch prior works from the director, or maybe know something about the director, or even if I have already worked with this specific director who has a new script, then absolutely I will go forward with an intention letter if they're going through the a production process with La SODEC or, Calc, whatever. Mm-hmm. So, but if it's someone I really don't know, I don't know what is a good script. It can be extremely well written, but I have difficulty accessing to it in my imaginary. So I don't have a great imagination. So this is why we usually take films that have already been finished. Mm-hmm. unless, as I said, it's someone we've worked with before and who sent us a script for his next film.
So thank you so much, guys, for everything. First of all, I will say thanks to Serge and to Jason and to Jean-Christophe for being here with us at like an hour and a half this morning. So thank you for taking this time. And also, just so you know, the RPCÉ films are free until October 31st. So if you're curious about all of these directors' films, they are free online. But Jean-Christophe, I've seen it all, but like for Jason and Serge. And also, thank you so much, guys, for being here at the Zoom. I hope you learned some things. And for the people that wanted the contact of Serge, Jason, or Jean-Christophe, you can write to Marielle and she will exchange the contact. And also, we'll see each other at 1 p.m. for the first Q&A of the competition number 1. So be ready if you are in that competition to answer many questions. I hope you're prepared. So we'll have a really great workshop with Kristen Falco from INIS for the Art of Pitch this afternoon at 3 p.m. So a big day ahead of us. So thank you so much for being here. And thank you, Serge and Jean-Christophe and Jason, for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Amy. Our pleasure. And congratulations on all your films, everyone. They were all really inspiring and great. So it was nice talking, not with you, but almost with you this morning.
So thank you so much, guys. So see you later and have a nice day.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.